Warning, if you're easily offended, triggered, or considered a snowflake by your friends, you're listening to the wrong podcast. The views and opinions you're about to hear are raw, unfiltered, and without any regard for political correctness.
I'm offended.
Shut up. Longtime friends Scott, Will, Devie, and Jay dive deep into issues that other podcasts are too scared to talk about.
No topic is off limits.
All opinions are welcome.
And there's nothing you can do about it.
Unlike some other popular panel shows, you know what we're talking about. These four friends have no agenda other than to tell it like it is. This is the Big Divide.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Big Divide. I'm your host, Scott Rowe, and we are going to dive into some stuff today. This is episode 1, season 1. Going Joe Rogan and everybody pretty soon. All right, welcome in. Hey, listen, I've been working with folks for a very long time in business. I do a lot of webinars. I do a lot of trainings, and inside my bubble, I've found some really good friends. And with what's going on in the world today, I decided to pick my one Jewish friend, my one Hispanic friend, and my one Black friend to all come together from different cultures and talk about issues of the day from these different perspectives. So bringing the ideas, I know you heard the Big Divide. The idea here is that, you know, these divided cultures, different cultures coming together, just showing that we're all human. That's the idea. So I played a lot of sports in my life. I've been in a lot of locker rooms. So I thought, you know what, why don't we just have a real conversation with some folks around issues, different perspectives, different ideas, maybe even change some minds, starting with ours. So I'm going to go around the horn. Will, are you there?
I am here, young man.
Will Montez is probably my oldest friend. I don't know. We've known each other. How long, Will?
25 years.
70 years? 25 years. That's a fantastic story that someday somebody should hear on how I met him and what he actually thought of me, because I had no thoughts about Will when I met him. He was part of a crowd. I got my other friend. It was absolutely true. I got another friend. So Will covers. He's Puerto Rican. He's from Chicago. He's got an interesting life. I know all about, and you're going to hear about that today because we're going to start the show with that. I got another friend all the way from D.C., Washington D.C. I met this gentleman inside of our real estate investing group nationwide. Devie Robertson.
What's up, Scoot?
We call him the Chicken Hawk. He don't like it, but we call him that anyway.
Not we, you.
Is that just me?
Yes.
All right. Well, we got Devie out there in Washington D.C. So he's close to a lot of the issues that are going on right now. So he's going to be real important. We're going to put him like man on the street sometimes. He could be going. He's in front of the White House and like a siege. All right. And then finally, I got a really good friend of mine. The office and the situation we run out of Chicago wouldn't be what it is in the real estate realm and the helping people realm that we do. If it wasn't for the next guy, Jay Abramovitz, he might be the oldest guy on the line. You out there, Jay?
Yeah, I think I am the oldest one. I can actually say good afternoon, young man, and be correct.
Yeah,
I'm certain I'm the oldest on the line.
Until we go video on this bad boy, Jay, if you just picture the most interesting man in the world, that's exactly it. He could be his brother, right?
Yeah, the thing is, when we go video, I'm going to have to actually comb my hair, aren't I?
I don't always do podcasts, and when I do, we make fun of Will.
There you go. Yeah, I might have to be the voice of reason and wisdom, given my age and experience.
You know what? If nothing else, you're the voice of reason and wisdom. And you know what? Jewish culture is about that, right? That's one of the things that very in-depth conversations at the tables.
We've been trying to tell the world that for over 5,000 years. So.
I know. We just ain't listening. I get it. Nobody's listening to you. Okay, so the idea behind this, when we conceptualized this thing, it was 4 people from 4 different backgrounds, 4 different cultures, all bringing a topic to the table and then us discussing it. It doesn't have to be about the culture. It could be sports. It could be Sasquatch. It could be UFOs. It could be politics. Who knows? Whatever somebody brings to the table, they're interested in talking about that week is what we're talking about. In that, if for some reason you're getting into the show and you want to bring up a topic yourself, you can go to bigdivideshow.com and give us your topic. Bigdivideshow.com is where you can find all of us, see our pictures, check out what we look like, and make fun of Will. All right, so So I'm going to start off with the first section here, and I'm going to go around the horn for everybody because I think, getting a sense of where we've come from is cool, right? Let's get to know the people on the line here and, how they grew up and what kind of culture they grew up in and what their families were like, what their friends were like, what their neighborhoods were like. And I'm going to start. I'm from Illinois, a place called Joliet, Illinois. My parents moved out of Joliet, went to a small town called Shanahan. So I come from a predominantly, it was all white, right? I grew up in a very rural area. There's only about 1,400 people in the town. It was a small school system. It was even a small high school. It was only 100 people in my graduating class. And we knew everybody. Everybody knew everybody. We all got along. You see the cliquey stuff that happens in other places. It didn't really happen in my life. And here's a cool thing. In my senior year, we had first black person ever in the high school showed up our senior year. And that's the culture I grew up in. I think it's important you guys get that perspective. But even though I grew up that way, I didn't have any, I don't think I had any prejudgments. It was like, when they showed up, it wasn't like they got treated any different when they showed up in high school. I joined a sales company where my whole perspective on people changed because I went to college. Obviously college was pretty diverse. I actually did a show with an actual talk show because I have a broadcast degree. Went to school for broadcast. I had DJ weddings and parties, all diverse. My best friend we ran the radio station together later in our college careers, Cal Coleman. We did a show together where we would talk about, we would talk about the differences in the cultures that we came from on our show, and it was a good time. I learned a ton interacting with the cultures that I'd never interacted before, helped me grow. Then I actually got into a sales company where I met Will Montez, the friend that's on the podcast. And we would go into the field with a box under our arm and sell stuff from business to business to anybody that would buy it. We got to pick our own territories. And I remember the first time I've ever experienced the South Side of Chicago, which, you guys, anybody that's listening to this anywhere in the country, the Chirac of the world. The South Side of Chicago, it's a rough place. And I was a country kid going through college, and then all of a sudden I'm working in this company, and my first day on a retrain with a guy, he went to the South Side of Chicago. And it was the first time I'd experienced bars on windows, right? Because it could get broken into, the metal doors that came down at night to protect the business. I'd never experienced that. That was an introduction, baptism by fire, if you'd say. And I got a perspective selling product in the field, and Will back me up on this probably, but and Will, I think Will really back me up on this. You go to a white neighborhood and they're uppity, they're all, like we buy retail. There was places in the suburbs you wouldn't, right, Will?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, right. You would stay away from the suburbs because they're like, oh, how you're a peddler, right? And we would, and they, a lot of people wouldn't let you in. They'd question you go to the South Side of Chicago. What'd you get, Will?
What you got?
Come on in. You got to be careful. There were things we trained on and we learned about, filling the box outside of you and then moving the car, right? Because if people saw you open the trunk with all the stuff in it.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
You learned how to be street smart.
Yeah. Oh,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But to be honest with you, when I look, it wasn't like you couldn't cultivate an area. There were plenty of white areas I would go to where they'd see you, they'd trust you, right? They'd get to a point where like, all right, what do you got today, kid? All right, I know I kicked you out 5 times, but what you got today? But you'd always go to even the Latino areas, right? They always had a sense of they were all opportunists, right? So they appreciated the person that came as an opportunist. Would you agree, Will?
Yes.
So, and technically, I'll go to Will. We're going to transition because I know Will very well. Will came from Chicago. I come from the suburbs. Me and Will now ride motorcycles a lot in the place where I grew up, right? And I think it's cool for Will to go through these small towns. Is that fun, seeing these little rural areas and these little 100-year-old towns that still exist? It's great. But But Will's got some stories about the Chicago area. I mean, there's stories where you would avoid corners because of gangs, or you'd have to you'd have to tough up, right? So let's go to Will. Will, tell us about your upbringing.
Okay. Well, I'm the baby of 5, okay, and I grew up in the city of Chicago, and it's an Italian neighborhood that I grew up in. All my friends were Caucasian when I was growing up. I was the only Puerto Rican, really close to, my Caucasian friends, and the neighborhood that I grew up with was very segregated, okay, so the gang... Every neighborhood in the city of Chicago had gang affiliations. Okay, I wasn't in a gang, but the gang that I grew up by is the C-Notes, right? And that means $100 bill, C-N-O-T-E-S. Okay, and what it represented for the C-Notes is Chicago Neighborhood Organization to Eliminate My Race, SPICS, right? So that's what it standed for. And, I witnessed a lot of violence, right? The projects were across the street from Grand Avenue. It's like a half a mile away from where the C-Notes were at. And once you see somebody who's different, like black or minorities, Hispanics, they didn't mess with us because I grew up in the neighborhood, but Latinos that didn't grow up in the neighborhood, they would get violated also, okay? When I mean violated, somebody would sneak up behind them and with a baseball bat hit them over the head. I witnessed that very much as a kid, okay? And I experienced the violence back in 1979. Okay. In 1979, my mom used to babysit. She had a personal daycare in the home. She raised over 50 plus kids. Okay. And
was it like certified? It
was not certified, right? But that was back in the days, right?
You're watching your mom be an opportunist, right?
Yes.
Inside the situation.
Yeah. And talking about opportunists, my first job, 13 years old, bro. Okay. I was working at a liquor store. I was the stock boy. And I worked there from freshman to high school.
You'd stock and drink and stock and drink.
Yeah. And now you got to be 21 years old. I wouldn't qualify. So times have changed. Okay. So, yeah, my mom was an opportunist. And the people that lived across the street was Jimmy and Linda. And they happened to be black. And my mom raised their 2 kids, which is Sonia and Jimmy Jr. And I remember when their home got cocktail bombed and, they moved out of the neighborhood. And in 1979, we lived in a 3-flat, 2 buildings, 2 addresses stuck together, right? 2134, 2136. A 3-flat, we lived in the front. So there were 6 apartments in the front and 6 additional apartments in the back. And the week before we got firebombed, we helped the owner put up the tar on the roof. It was a flat roof. And they cocktail bombed us on the first floor. At 2136, I lived on the 3rd floor of 2134, West Huron, and I watched the whole building just go up in flames. The roof collapsed, and I was pissed off. For many years, I hated white people, okay? And that was my own personal experience. And I wanted to go to Lane High School once I graduated and from elementary school. And Lane was one of the top schools in the city of Chicago, or the top school in the city of Chicago back in 1980, okay? But I didn't qualify. They only took 3 of us from our graduating class. So I had to go to the inner city school. When, my siblings went there, 2 of my sisters dropped out, and I didn't want to go to that school. But that was like a war zone, right? You had to watch where you walk, right? Be careful who you affiliate with, watch the clothes that you wear, the color, how you hold up your hands, how you put on your cap, your baseball cap. You got to put it straight. And it's like survival. I go, what the hell is this?
The street smart that you get where you grow up is way different than the field smart I get where in cornfields having parties.
Right. And you were talking about the yuppity up, right?
Yeah,
and I remember we were helping out in an office in Minnesota. Okay. So I was in Minnesota for 3 months helping out an office, and I went to Eden Prairie, Minnesota. Is that yuppity up or is that yuppity up? Back in that was 1995. I remember this clearly. And like you said, we would carry merchandise and walk into a business and we would sell stuff for cheap. Okay. And I was out in that field in Eden Prairie, and I couldn't sell one thing. Right. And it was because it was a $10 item. We were selling duffel bags.
Yeah.
And then after lunch, the epiphany occurred to me. I go, you know what? This is too cheap for them. They're yuppity up. So I raised up the price, right, to $30. And they go, $30, really? Okay, I'll take one.
Take it. And then you're making $20 extra because you're an opportunist.
Yeah, an opportunist. But I wouldn't cheat the system, right? Because it wasn't fair for the next guy. And you know how we worked the territory correctly. Yeah. I would give them 2 more for free.
You'd be like, you know what? Take 2 from me, right?
Yeah, take 2 more for free. And they would realize, really?
When you got new stuff, come back.
Yeah. It's amazing, what perception is. And that's all it is. It's all perception.
Yeah, that's really rough. I mean, I was hanging out with Willie's friends, and they were telling me about, you'd go to this corner and you go to this corner. And one of his friends is like, I'd always carry a Bible. I'm like, God be with you. God be with you. Just hoping that they leave the holy kid alone. Right? Yeah. At least they picked on the holy kid. They're going to hell. Right? Yeah. And it was a deterrent, like, just a survival gear, right? The Bible back then, even though the guy's, he's super religious. I love that guy, I guess. All right. So let's move on. I want to go to Devie. Devie, you're from Atlanta, right?
Originally born and raised in Atlanta, Georgia.
Born and raised in Atlanta, home of the Chicken Hawks.
That's the Atlanta Falcons.
No, those are the Chicken Hawks. They ain't winning nothing. They never win nothing. All right. Hey, and I think that Atlanta, I mean, you grew up, how long you been out of Atlanta?
Well, I did 20 years in the military and been retired 6 years. So 26 years I've been away from Atlanta.
Okay. So I know that Atlanta is, it's like 51% Black, right?
Somewhere around there. Yeah.
Was it that when you were living there?
It was probably a little bit more. Yeah, definitely more. Okay.
So you come from a world where the majority is the minority, right?
Correct. That is correct.
Yeah. So, and now you have a perspective where when you leave that, it's almost like a comfort zone. You leave that and go to different places like the Navy, and you go to you got to experience stuff all over the world. You live in DC now, right?
That's correct.
All right. Tell us about growing up. We all talked about ours.
Yeah, so me growing up, like pretty much a lot of folks, predominantly Black neighborhoods. I went to predominantly Black schools, and my first interaction with anyone not Black was when I went to Charlotte, North Carolina, and my grandmother had me go to church with her, and she went to a predominantly white church. And this white family, they were doing an adoption thing. I don't know what it is about how they do stuff like that, but they do this adoption thing, and they would adopt a Black family. And so, I spent a couple weeks with this white family, learning how white people live, which was completely different from me. So that gave me a different perspective. Because I got to experience certain things there. What Black kids mainly see on TV, I got to actually experience that in real life.
So you just stereotyped me.
Yeah, very stereotyped.
People are white people.
Yeah. So but that's how the stereotypes were formed. We saw it on TV, and then I got to say, hey, they really do live like this, right? It was one perspective.
Well, they really do live like this. They can't dance. They can't dance. They can't sing.
They're very uppity. Yeah, right.
Very uppity. Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then you traveled all over. I mean, one of my topics I thought about 1 week. I want to talk about shellbacking, but you got to travel. You got a chance to travel all over the world with the Navy, right?
I literally have been around the globe.
Around the globe, baby.
Yeah, and I've traveled to so many countries I can't even keep count of them.
I'm kind of envious of that. I want to join the Navy now.
Yeah.
Join the Navy.
Well, you make enough money, you could do it on your own. You don't need the Navy for that.
Shh. IRS might be listening.
Oh,
okay. Don't tell them. Okay, so all right, so you grew up in a comfort zone, really, in Atlanta, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
I would say that.
I don't know. Did you grow up around gangs at all? Because I know if you grow up in Chicago in a predominantly Black neighborhood, you're probably hanging out with gangs.
Yeah. Now, so I didn't grow up in what we call the projects or anything like that. Like my mom, I come from a single family. Not a single family, single mom home. Mm-hmm. I'm the youngest of 3 boys. Mm-hmm. I'm the baby, but my mom, she raised us, to be be above our circumstances. And so, but she struggled, but she also made sure that we were never living in the projects and that we always had a roof over our head, even if we were living with other people. And so, we bounced around Atlanta. I've lived probably in every area of Atlanta. But I always had that perspective. We're not poor. We're not, or what we would say in the Black community, I'm not po. There's a difference between being poor and po. So we were poor, but we just wasn't po. So other people get that. And
you know what? Correct me if I'm wrong. When I hear you say that, I think, well, po is mentality. You ain't ever getting out of po. But poor is something you can change.
Yeah, that is part of it. But po was you can't even afford to spit, right? You can't afford that.
Can't afford the water.
Yeah, you got to drink that.
All right.
All right. Poor is
I don't know.
Poor you could do a little things. You could do certain things, right? I always had a pair of shoes and clothes, even if I got it from my brother or something. Mm-hmm. But it would be nice, and the other kids would say, "Hey, you're rich." They would consider us being rich. Wow. Because we were never in the projects.
That's perspective.
Yes.
All right, man. Awesome. I'm going to move on to my Jewish friend over there, the chosen one.
Shalom. Yeah. How you doing? I'm listening to these introductions, and I didn't know what I was going to say, but as I was listening to Will and Devie and you, Scooty, I know exactly what my come from is here, because the point of this podcast, and by the way, thank you so much for inviting me to the podcast. I'm nervous about this, but I think this is going to be a ton of fun. And I want to give my introduction from a Jewish perspective, which I have to be honest with you, just hit me like a ton of bricks right now. So this is completely spontaneous. I was born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and grew up there my early years. And Pittsburgh then wasn't what it is today. It was a steel town. And I remember that vividly as a kid. It was a blue collar town. Today it's a white collar town. It's very clean. So it was a very different environment.
What'd your dad do?
Well, my dad was a burgeoning entrepreneur. I love my dad. He's gone now, but oh man, you hear that? Don't start me. Don't get me started on this. But you can do that. Yeah, that's a trigger for me for sure.
Wow. Didn't know that.
He ran an insurance agency, and he struggled. I don't know why he struggled. I don't know what the source of that was. But he bounced around a little bit, and we had some family that kept him employed. And actually, I like that you asked that question because it segues into a place I wanted to go. And I didn't learn this. This is really remarkable. I'm going to be 65 in a couple of weeks, and I did not learn this until less than 2 years ago. We grew up in a duplex in Pittsburgh. My grandparents owned the building. You may have heard me say this in front of the room. And we lived upstairs. They lived downstairs. But the reason we lived in that duplex was because my parents couldn't afford to pay rent anywhere. And as kids, we didn't know that. We thought we were living well. Well, life was a struggle, apparently, and I credit my parents for not letting us, the kids, know that. I've got two brothers, one older, one younger, and that was our...
So let me get it straight. You wanted to know you were poor?
I don't know. No.
Or you just wanted everybody to be honest, like, hey, here's our situation.
I don't know that I wanted it to be any different, but I found it remarkable that it took me into my early 60s to learn that we were pretty poor when I was growing up. I knew that there was never an overabundance of money, but I didn't know that my parents couldn't pay the rent, and that's what drove them into the duplex. Yeah. So I grew up in a nuclear family. My grandparents lived downstairs. My mother's sisters lived within blocks of where we lived, and it was the grandparents, the aunts and uncles, and parents, of course, that had a huge influence on our upbringing. And you mentioned a Jewish tradition earlier, and I'll confirm this. There is a strong Jewish tradition about education, and I'm going to take it a step further, argument. Now, what do I mean by argument? That means getting into things and discussing it. And I remember vividly so early on around the dinner table, we would talk about politics, we'd talk about religion, anything. And everybody was encouraged to participate in the conversation. There was none of this, oh, don't talk about that. That's verboten. Yeah. Anything was up for grabs. And if you wanted to have your opinion heard, you had to speak up and be heard. And you
were born for this. This is yes. 65 years later, you're now your destiny.
Absolutely. So I grew up in the Squirrel Hill section of Pittsburgh, which was, and I think it still is, predominantly Jewish. So my experience of being Jewish until I was about, I guess, 11 or 12 years old was, so what? Yeah, everybody is, because that's what I saw. And then we moved to a town about 60 miles north of Pittsburgh, and that was the first time in my life I began to understand that being Jewish wasn't necessarily a good or bad thing. And there are people out there in the world that weren't real happy about Jews walking the earth. And I'm not going to say I had the experience that Will was describing, but I had my share of beat ups and beat downs just for the fact that I was Jewish. And it confused me. I didn't understand it. I had and held no animosity toward anybody, and I didn't understand why anybody would hold it toward me. And when I was, I guess, about 14 years old or 15, we moved to New York. We were in suburban New York. And so everywhere I've been, these are urban areas, I was then really exposed to so many different cultures. And I grew up in a suburban neighborhood that was Italian, one generation out of the Bronx. And these were some pretty tough guys. Yeah. They were rough and tumble. And they were acutely aware of my Jewishness, and they never let me forget it. And it was rough. There were a lot of fights over that. And I don't even know why we had the fights. I suspect they were...
Because you were Jewish.
Yeah, well, probably my pride got in the way of that. And I would swing. I had no hesitation. We'd swing. We'd mix it up. But I have no regrets for the background, because it really informs the way I think and the way I approach and receive other cultures. And it was interesting. And from New York, I bounced to Los Angeles and then to Chicago. So I've been in every major U.S. city, and my experience is far more urban than it is anything. And that informs my view of the world. So I might be able to bring an interesting perspective to the call.
You do. And
thank you.
A bunch of wisdom too.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So I'm looking forward to always respectful, but arguments. And let's not forget, arguments are just conversations. It doesn't have to mean a fight. Yeah.
Debate.
There you go. Yeah.
Debate's a nicer word than argument, because arguments, there's a connotation around argument that is like, oh, you're arguing. Like my mom lives with me, right?
Yeah.
We have completely, Will knows this. She is as blue as they get, dude, as far as Democratic, right? And I'm a conservative, and she's constantly saying, I shouldn't live here, because she lives with me, which makes a fantastic nanny, and she cooks way better than my wife. And I'm not afraid to say that without getting divorced, because my wife knows it and will admit it. But she's like, you always want to argue. I'm like, no, I'm having a conversation with you. I don't want to have a conversation with you. So, it's weird. But I like debate. I don't mind it.
Well, I think debate is good. This is how we learn. It's how we grow. And it's actually a really good way to receive and assimilate other cultures into our sensibilities. Because if we don't listen and we don't hear other people, we've got problems. And I think that goes to the heart of a lot of the problems in our world today.
Absolutely.
Everybody approaches a situation, a problem from their perspective, and immediately they pile on all these assumptions that may or may not be true.
Yeah.
So we'll spend a lot of time knocking those down.
Devie brought it up. There's a lot of stereotyping going on right now in the world.
Oh my goodness. Isn't it true?
I don't know how much time we got. Tristan, are you out there? Tristan's got a mic. You out there, brother?
I'm here.
There's our producer, the awesome Tristan. We guys going to give you guys a chance to hook up with Tristan later on, because I think this podcast thing is something my friends will do. We hang out with a pretty good crew around the country that are interested in doing what we're doing, and getting their voices out there. We got some really talented folks that we work with around the country right now. So pretty cool. And Tristan is actually our referee. So
are we supposed to call Tristan Mr. Producer like Mark Levin does? Like Mr. Producer?
I'd
like that. Okay.
Mr. Sir.
Mr. Sir. All right. Well, listen, I'll kick it off. I have a topic that I want to talk about. Everybody's thinking about it right now, and it's filling the Supreme Court seat. But I want to take a slightly different perspective on it.
Okay.
And the perspective I want to take on it is this, and here's my position, and I'll lay this out here. It won't take you 10 minutes to figure out that I'm a political conservative, and it shouldn't take you long to figure out that I'm a political junkie as well. I really get lost in the news, and I try to keep up with things.
I am too. I'm just going to say this because you said it. I am now. I never was until it became this interesting, to be honest with you. And you everybody on the line here can attest. When I do meetings, because I do a lot of meetings, we talk a lot of real estate and business. I do a lot of meetings where I let the audience know, look, I'm not Democrat or Republican. I'm educated, right? Like, these guys are all battling. There's two mobs battling for control of something of our lives. But now these days, there's a lot going on. I think there's a lot at stake. Right now.
Oh, there's a ton at stake
too, right? So now I'm paying attention. I don't know if that comes with age or if it comes with just awareness or it comes because, the guy in the White House was fingers crossed, kind of like, what is going on with this? I mean,
awareness and age may come together. I don't know. One may inform the other, but there certainly is a lot going on. So with regard to the Supreme Court, vacancy and filling it, we hear everybody's spin on it, and I understand why the Dems don't want to do it, and they're making this argument about what the Republicans did when Merrick Garland was nominated and the way they held up the vote, and we can have those arguments all day long, but I'd like to render it down to something that is so clear, so simple. Take a look at the Constitution. Article 2, Section 2 clearly lays out, and in fact, Joe Biden himself laid it out so clearly the other day. He said, let the people speak. The people elect a president. The president nominates somebody for the Senate to consider and consent. Let the system play out. Well, I've got news for everybody. The president was duly elected in 2016, like him or not, and I'm okay if you don't like him. And he's got a nominee.
I'm okay. Well, he did not win the popular vote. What do you answer? What's your answer?
Well, so what? That's not how we elect presidents.
That's right. That's my answer. I'm like, well, for 200, I mean, if they made that rule early, then we would count. But right now, here's how baseball's played.
Well, exactly. And this is what confuses the conversation so much. Somebody will bring that up, and it's completely irrelevant. You want to have a debate over the Electoral College? Let's have a debate over that.
But I'll be honest, guys. I mean, I thought that was the way it's supposed to work.
What, popular vote?
I didn't know that until recently.
Okay, so if you're playing, listen, you've lost every game. I think the rule, you can't steal bases in this game. Oh no, they're going to score on you, right? So if you don't understand the game and understand the rules, then you're not playing the same game.
Right. That's just like if you only know how to play checkers, but you're trying to play chess, you're not playing with the same rules. You're not playing the same game.
No, you're not playing with the same understanding. The rules are always the same, right? Yeah. Your understanding's off. And the problem is people are blaming the system. They're like, well, here's the problem. The problem is not popular vote. It should be popular vote. And they're like, look, let's just deal with the rules that are out. If you want to change rules, there's lots of ways to do that, right? But right now, what we have is what we have.
In fact, I think a debate over the Electoral College would be a great topic. We could do an entire show on that. But as it stands today, the Electoral College is what elects the president. Donald Trump was duly elected, and he's going to put a nominee before the Senate, and they're going to approve or disapprove the nominee. It looks at this point like they will approve because they control the Senate. Yeah. And for the record, the Democrats did put a nominee, Merrick Garland, in front of the Senate, but the problem was the problem for the Democrats was that the Republicans controlled the Senate and they delayed the vote, which was their legal right to do. Now, you can take issue with that, but let's just render it down to, as I like the way you put it, Scooty, the rule book. The rule book is the Constitution of the United States, and it's so clear. The nomination should go forward, and then the Senate should decide to advance the nominee or not, and then that'll be based on the politics. But that's my way in on it. There's everything else is irrelevant. It's just noise.
I think that inside that rule book, so we go back and the argument is, Merrick Garland didn't get even a vote or consideration. It's only because, again, it's where it was split. The guy who ran the Senate, which was Mitch McConnell, says, look, the Senate's got one view and the executives got another view. And here's what he said. He goes, we're not going to see that. And then I think he made it up this past time when they said we're going to consider Trump's nominee. People are like, well, you said an election year. No, he said like we're split right now, and because we're split, it doesn't favor the nominee. It doesn't.
Hey, and listen, one more point, if I may, because this is significant. I will call down the Republicans, and I'm a registered Republican, but I identify as a conservative, not a Republican. And the Republicans are making the argument that we control the Senate, therefore we can put it forward. Irrelevant. That has no bearing on it. So the fact that there's a different party in control in the Senate as in the executive is completely irrelevant. The Constitution doesn't address that at all. It says that the president has an obligation to put the nominee forward.
Yeah.
And then let the Senate deal with it. So
right, exactly. So so Barack got a chance to do that, and then the argument was, well, it's an election year. We don't have to hear it because we're a different party. We're going to let the voters decide after the election what they want. And in my world, and this is my answer to every one of my friends that say something, I'm like, and they won, right? So America decided that the executive would be GOP and the Senate would be GOP back in 2016, and technically even the Congress was GOP. So that to be honest with you, this is another topic that should have sent a message to the Democrats, right? That I don't even think they've even rectified, to be honest with you.
They haven't.
I think they've gotten even worse. I mean, they've gone emotionally off the rails. I think that my conservative friends are technically more logical than my Democratic friends right now. They're very emotional, right? They're reacting to things emotionally, whereas I think I'll probably get grilled on the website over this. But I think that if I got to look down on all my friends, the emotional ones are the ones that are so angry. And my concerns are like, well, let's talk about that. And they're like, I don't want to talk. I want to scream. Crazy.
Well, because that'll solve everything,
yeah,
right?
Exactly. I want to add a point onto that. Okay. The emotions, right? With the Supreme Court justice, the left is pushing the narrative of her last dying wish, which has nothing to do with the United States Constitution. He has a right to nominate the next Supreme Court justice because it's in the Constitution. But they're running the narrative about feelings, her last dying wish. And that's the difference, feeling over fact, right? That's where we're at right now.
Hey, I want to emphasize a point that you just made, Will. Yeah. He has an obligation to do that. That's a constitutional obligation. Yes. That's his job. It's not just a right. It's an obligation.
So technically the people that put him in said, hey, we hired you to do this. You better do it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So on that point, I can definitely agree with, okay, he has an obligation, and the people who put him in there, he's, for a job. I think where it's getting kind of blurred is most Americans, they don't know or understand because we're following Democrat, Republican. There is no medium. There is no referee that says, like to Jay's point, okay, the Republicans want to put something forward, but it's irrelevant. The Democrats are saying, hey, we want this because it feels good. This is the way it's supposed to be. And there's no one in to say, but this is the way it's supposed to be, guys. You are wrong and you're wrong, or not even right or wrong. Hey, you want to do it this way, but that's not the way it should be. You want to have it this way because it that way. And there's no medium to educate people on what is constitutional, what is someone's just willing to have power, or what is the correct way.
So, Devie, what do you think that medium should be? I think you bring up a great point. What should the medium be to inform people?
I think because when you had the independent ticket, and we don't put enough emphasis on that, because we joke when I'm on here. One of the things where I'm on here because I'm supposed to be the Democrat, right? But I'm not. Democrat.
Okay, let's just define that really quick because we didn't cover that in the beginning. You are a Democrat. You're on here because I love you, buddy. I love you, chicken hog. You're my favorite chicken hog in the world, bro. I can't wait to see you in Chicago here soon.
You're going to dodge a fist from Danietta if you call me chicken hog again.
Danietta? What do you mean, Danietta?
Yeah,
don't bring her name up.
Jay.
Anyhow, I mean, really, because I'm neither Democrat nor Republican, right? I guess we're talking about stereotypes is that most black people are Democrats, right? But And I do some things I base it on kind of feelings and certain things. But back to Jay's question, what do I believe? I believe there should be that independent ticket that can say, you know what, let's take the best of the left and the right, and what are the actual rules, and educate people on that and say, hey, this is the agenda that we should be pushing, because this is what works for everyone in terms of the American people. What are the laws? What are the rules? How the game is played? Who is the referee?
I know who was the referee before. You know
who was the referee? Well,
growing up, I remember the people that would hold the politicians accountable was media. Media was neutral, right? And they would cover facts. We had 2020, right? We had Barbara Walters. Okay, Walter Cronkite, help me out here. Walter Cronkite, okay. And I remember I would listen to the media, and the media would give you the truth. Now it's biased. So?
Hold on a second. It's way more biased today. Okay. But here,
hold on. My experience, right? Because we didn't have Google. We didn't have YouTube. We didn't have social media. Okay. And I know that media can be biased, but they weren't as biased as they are right now. Right now, they're showing their true colors, and they don't even care.
Yeah, on both sides.
On both sides.
Well,
right?
There's a lot more. Technically, there's a lot more liberal media than there is conservative.
Yeah, but growing up, I guess they hit it really well. Okay, that's the best way I can explain it, because that's where I got mine.
Will, I'm going to prove it to you. Ready? Watch this. Ready? I'm going to help everybody in the audience and our two other friends. Willie, who did you vote for in 2016 as far as president?
Hillary.
There you go. Who have you voted for your entire life growing up in Chicago?
Democrats.
Right. And who you not vote for now? Because you've told me.
Democrats.
Why? What was the change?
The lies, right? The lies. I felt lied to. And it's all we knew, right?
Do you believe that you were being lied to before, maybe?
I didn't care about. You said something very interesting, okay? And you're hitting a nerve right now, okay? You said something very interesting where I went blank because you hit a nerve. Bear with me. Just bear with me. I grew up in the city of Chicago, okay? And it was very segregated. Chicago it was the most segregated city in the Union, right? And now it's very diverse, but it's still got its segregation behind the scenes. And I remember, and here's the topic I'm going to talk about: Harold Washington. Harold Washington was the mayor of the city of Chicago, and he took down Jane Byrne. He took down Richard J. Daley. And when I say take down, he beat them in an election fair and square. And the city council was all Democrats, but they were all racist. Ed Burke, Ed Verdoliak, I remember the council wars, and I was saying, let's go Harold Washington. Now, Harold Washington was a man from all the people. And here's what's lacking today, okay? We just voted in 2008, Barack Obama into office. In 2012, Barack Obama into office. The first Black African-American president ever. And when he was nominated, okay, and when he won the presidency, he was like Harold Washington was for me in 1984, okay? Harold Washington happened to be the mayor of Chicago, but he wasn't a Black mayor. He was a mayor that happened to be Black. And Barack Obama, okay, voted into office. He was the president that happened to be Black. But now the way he's showing up is that he was a Black president, but he wasn't. But that's the cry that they're putting out now, the narrative, systemic racism. And it's such a crock of BS, right? For the deeds of one individual. So the systemic racism that they're playing now, No, systemic racism, right? I remember when they burned down my house, I was pissed. That was systemic racism, right?
You blamed it on systemic racism.
I'm sorry?
You said, well, that's the system burning down my house.
Oh, it was because the police never did anything about it. Right? That was the dailies in charge, right? And everybody knew what the dailies represented, right? And if growing up in the city of Chicago, it is what it is. And I didn't believe
we felt, but there's no, not in somebody's brain.
I get it, right? But you said, now I know where the train of thought. It's like, why are we so keen and aware about politics today? And here's the reason why. There's no other generations other than us, right? Protecting future generations. It's age, right? We didn't care. I didn't care growing up, right? I really didn't care. I would never enroll into the military because I didn't believe that they cared in us. For the first time, I believe, right? Although the tweeting and everything, and I didn't vote for him in 2016, okay, because of the rhetoric, I applied feelings. But if you apply logic, for the first time, somebody's working on behalf of the American people. And I've never experienced that before. And now I know that I am important. My family's important, right? My neighbors are important. And all United States citizens are important, right? And that's why I changed my views. Right? I changed my views because I became more aware. And that awareness, there's an awakening going on. And because there's an awakening with the racial thing, okay, just think about it. And I'm going to say something very, very aware here. Law and order, okay? And we have minorities that love law and order. And they're saying defunding the police. But the people, if they defund the police, where is the crime at? It's low-income minority neighborhoods, Black and Latinos. I've experienced this, right? And I see it all the time. And I tell people, you have opportunity. You have opportunity. This is the United States of America. But most people believe that they don't from where they come from. But if they understood, just dip into your power. And you have the opportunity to lift yourself up from no matter where you're at, right? And that's what's going on right now. Somebody's working on behalf of all people, right? The color of your skin shouldn't dictate where you land in the future with careers, right? The color of your skin has nothing to do with your accomplishments.
I'm going to stop you right there because I think I need clarity here because I know you. And you're not saying, I think you're saying that you shouldn't let the color of your skin dictate.
That's what I am saying. That's what I am saying.
You're not saying, well, the racist systems out there, the colors, you're not bashing the system. You're actually saying, listen, get out of your head.
Get out of your head. Exactly.
Get out of your head and stop being a victim if you're being a victim. If you're blaming something, the color of skin hold me back. And I know what you're talking about because we've worked together for a long time and we've created from zero. It was, we got paid what we made, right? So you have a chance to take that kind of control. So I want to make sure you're saying that because it sounds.
I am saying that, right? And I said it with conviction, because just like Jay said, right? He thought about his dad growing up when he heard all of our stories, and I thank you for inviting me on this show.
You're welcome. Now snap out of it.
Hey, can I jump on something that Will started? I love where you went with this, Will. The question was, what should be the platform or the medium to inform people? Devie pointed out people don't know. And you brought up the press, and I agree with you. The press is generally speaking, is unbelievably irresponsible in directing their agenda-driven narratives.
Great word. Irresponsible is a great word.
Well, they are. But there's another medium, too, that I think we haven't touched on yet, and that's the education system. Oh, yeah. And I think because that's where it has to start. I mean, that's where I learned constitutional law. It's where I learned about, we called it civics when I went to school. We learned about how government works. We learned that we're a representative republic. We're not a democracy. And if you ask people on the street today, are we a democracy? I'll bet most people would tell you yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there's just a lot of misinformation out there.
We're not that.
No, but it goes back to what I said. People are not educated because they don't know the rules. They don't know what we are, because you're getting your information from the media, or you're getting your information from your parents who vote a certain way, and other parents vote another way. So you're getting this trickle down information, and no one is getting the facts. So it's just like what we do within our education group with our investing. If people don't understand that this is afforded to them, or they can take advantage of this, they just go by what is given out. They say, "Oh, well, the government says I have to do this, and this is the way you do it." But until someone educates, or until we get educated on it, we're basing all of this off of emotions and secondhand information.
So, Devie, you suggested as one of the platforms for information dissemination would be a third political party. Now, I love the idea of a third political party, but I don't think that's the place to disseminate information as fact, because they're going to be agenda-driven too. Although I think a third political party would go a long way to holding the other two more accountable.
Yeah, no, I agree, because it's so, when you're talking about the left and the right, and okay, we know there's right and there's wrong, and then there's the truth somewhere in the middle, right? And so, I agree with you. Having a third party shouldn't solely be the medium that we get educated. But right now, that's where we're getting. So I feel we need to get back to it in the schools. I feel the media should get back to not being so having their own agenda, like Will suggested. Because again, I got my information from the media, right? And now I look at both. All the platforms right now, and I'm like, they're all just driving their own agenda. You can have CNN and Fox up simultaneously, and they're going to be talking about the same subject, and they're going to put their own spin on it. And so you're like, well, who's right, or what information is correct? And they're both going to put out bits and pieces of correct information, but then they're going to spin it to their side. Mm-hmm. And so then you got people who, if you solely just watch Fox, then you're gonna solely be based off of that. If you solely watch CNN or all the other, then that's what you're going to be basing it off of. And then we get this emotional.
Can I make a suggestion to the people on the line here, even to the audience? This is something I think that everybody should do. One of the reasons I want to do a podcast is because now I'm a podcast junkie, and I realize how accessible doing something like this is. I mean, it's as simple as, the platforms we have out there and the opportunities we have right now as humans is something that the elites and the media hate. They're like, whoa, average people can be just like us and get as many views as us. There's a problem for the elites on that. And I am now podcasting. I think here's a suggestion for everybody that's listening to this podcast. There are a top set of podcasts out there. Like, you got, and I know I'm going to talk about like Ben Shapiro and, I hate Ben, but there are podcasts out there that are ranked based on the crowd appeal. And that's an organic thing. The mastermind kind of lets you know it will actually deal with facts better than the media can give them to us, right? Like, oh, you know what? That sounds reasonable. Because the mind always goes to, you know what? That sounds reasonable right there. I'm going with that. That's where we'll always be if we're hearing all the information. I'm a podcast junkie today. This is where I'm getting my information, because the perspectives are like, hey, let's talk about this, almost like we're doing. Hey, let's talk about this versus, all right, how are we gonna put this on air so that that we want to get our narrative out? Does that make sense? So I think there's a lot of podcasts out there right now that are just going, what's new and how do I feel about it? Because technically humans feel something about information. And I think there's a lot of organic, raw, authentic podcasts out there that are really doing a good job of getting you the information that's brand new and then going, well, here's how I feel about it. I don't know how you feel about it. What do you guys think?
Hey, Scooty, I would also encourage people to listen to podcasters and newscasters, for that matter, that are willing to criticize every side of the political argument, not just one side, and protect their interests. If you're listening to people that will smack down the president as well as the opposition, then you're probably listening to somebody who's going to give you a pretty clear and honest point of view.
And I think it goes back to what Will said earlier. The newscast, I mean, I used to listen to, here in Chicago, it was Channel 7, Eyewitness News, right? Fahey Flynn. Remember that guy?
Fahey Flynn, yeah.
So it would always be straight down the middle. And today, the president, again, donated his check to the veterans. They would say something like that because it was news. Now you won't hear that on CNN because it doesn't fit what they want their people to think about the president. Does that make sense? Today, and then they say, and he also tweeted some bad crap. So they would say both sides. Like, I remember the news I used to listen to, like Will had talked about, was, here's the news. He donated his check, but then he tweeted something dumb.
Right, but you said that, like, so you say CNN say, hey, he did something dumb, but then you'll have Fox who will say, oh, he's doing all these great things, and it's like, no,
I'm with you. I'm not saying Fox is any better than CNN. They're both extreme, right? So, this gives a good chance to, hey, if you guys, you know what, myself and we're all planning to have are we having an election night party here, Jay? We still doing that?
Oh, we so should. We absolutely should.
We got 3 minutes to pop that. So here's what we're doing. We have a Super Bowl party in our. If you go to the website, again, the website. If you want to check out our website, we put together for this thing, bigdivideshow.com. Let us know how we did. Maybe pick a topic so we can talk about it. But you may see pictures of the office. I don't know. Maybe I'll have Tristan put it up there. But we had a pretty big office that we all know and love, and since 2007, been here for a while. We do a lot of real estate and business out of it. But we have Super Bowl parties every single year, right? In this place, we pack the place. It's probably the kids are running around. There's lots of food, and the floors get all messy. And but it's great. And I thought to myself, you know what? With what's going on in the world, I think I want to have an election night Super Bowl party here. And so we're going to put the 4 screens on different. On the right side, we're going to have the Fox News on. On the left side,
of course, on the right side, right?
Of course, dude. Come on. On the left side, it's going to be CNN, right? In the middle, maybe MSNBC, ABC. I mean, ABC on the right a little bit. On the right-hand side, we're going to have the tablecloths all be red. On the left-hand side, they're all going to be blue. In the middle, they're going to be purple. I got plans, bro.
I love it. I love it.
You think my wife is a party planner? Dude, you need to. I got plans.
He's not a party.
Come on, bro. This is going to be fun. Yeah. So that's going to be on election night, Tuesday. We're going to be here until we have the result, until somebody concedes.
So we'll be there for about 6 weeks, right?
So January 20th.
So that means I can travel from DC up to Chicago and be a part of all of that.
No, you now got to be a part of it. You're part of the show. We're going to be part of the top of this thing. We're inviting anybody that's listening to the show. I don't even know if you know us. Even if you don't know us, just let us know you want to come. We'll put you on the VIP. You can wear masks if you want. You don't got to wear masks. Hug everybody you want. Kiss everybody you want. Stay away from them. Bring some disinfectant. I don't care. Right? I
love the idea.
If you do wear a mask, it's got to be of your affiliation, so we know what side to put you on.
Maybe. That's good. That's good.
I'm not wearing a mask in my own building.
No, I said for the people who want to come, mask.
Hey, we're coming up on about that time. I appreciate everybody. Hey, I know we didn't do any ads. We're not big enough to have ads yet. Nobody's paying us. So, episode 1, season 1. So like us, subscribe, whatever you got to do. This is the future. The BigDivideShow.com.
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 All right, thanks for joining us, guys. Guys, thanks for joining me on this line. I appreciate us all coming together. This was fun enough to do again. I at least want to do it once more time. How's that?
I got something to say.
Oh, God.
BigDivideShow.com.
Big Divide Show.
BigDivideShow.com. All right. Thank you very much, Tristan. You're awesome, dude. If anybody wants to do a podcast, go to Duns. Tristan, what is it?
You can just shoot me an email, Tristan@digitalduns.com.
I want to do a podcast, Tristan. I'll be contacting you.
Hey, guys. Thanks for joining us. We're going to see you next week. Thanks a lot, guys.
This has been The Big Divide. Don't forget to subscribe for your weekly dose of unfiltered and unapologetic conversation.
Done and done.
And of course, share this episode with all of your friends. Well, maybe not the sensitive ones.
You apologize right now.
Do you have a question, topic, or opinion that you want to hear discussed? Go to BigDivideShow.com and tell us all about it.
Or simply look up Big Divide on Instagram or Facebook and send us a message.